You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
All right, so here we are with Reach across Johnson County. We're going to be talking about mental health issues. We're going to be talking about the seminar they have October 13th and 14th. Is that the right date?
Yes,
okay,
the RISE
good.
conference.
Yeah, right. And it's the RISE conference at Pathways. Y'all did this before. It was a big success. It's going to be a bigger success. So before we jump into all that, why don't y'all introduce yourselves to our vast listening audience here?
I'm Erica, and I am the coalition coordinator.
I am Gracie, and I work with Ashley closely doing the COVID funding project coordinator position.
Yes, my name is Ashley, and I'm our mental health project coordinator.
And see, y'all got this big seminar coming up. I bet y'all are pretty busy, right?
Very.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, good. It keeps you out of trouble, I suppose.
Keeps the time going.
Yeah. There you go. But this seminar was very successful last year, and now you're looking to expand it even to larger. And I could see one day, if and when we ever get a convention center type setup here in Burleson, which is something the council's been talking about for a long time, I'm sure you'd fill it up. And so, anyway, we're going to go through all those details about not only what you're going to be offering, the types of courses, where it's going to be, all that, but also if you want to help sponsor it, right? Because you're always in need of like headline sponsors.
Of course.
Yeah, that always helps. And also any other people want to participate, like vendors of sorts. So there you are. But anyway, let's run through our vendors here. So the ones that put this out there, talk about our friends at CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire, our new owners, Lexi and Bailey. They'll take care of you. They got great plans for the place. They have the old plans still in place. Also, classes are still pretty much as they are. They are going to add a couple of others, so check it out on their Facebook page and their website, CrossFitBurleson.com. Then our friend Shandy Stogsdill at the Realty Group she runs. If you're looking to move in and around the area, this is the woman to do it. She's knows the real estate. She knows how to get it done. She's going to be on the show probably next month. This is, summertime, right before the kids go back to school. She does a lot of showings. And then when the kids come back to school, not just hers, but other families, things change a little. But there you are, Shandy Stogsdill, so check her out. Also, our place. I was there this morning. I'm going to be there this afternoon. All right. I just put a meeting with our mutual friend Greg Williams from BNI, and what's so funny about it is I just put it on Thursday, and then I have this group of men from my church that meets together, and we spend all our time belly aching about the condition of the world, and we didn't solve any problems today, so I'll be there twice today. So. So that's a good place to be, though. Y'all been there.
I love our place.
Really? I mean, I know you and I met there one time.
Yes.
It was Sarah Italian, but that was a year ago? Mm-hmm. Okay.
They just put one in Cleburne, and that's where I live. So.
Oh, yeah? That's right.
Yes.
Well, it's a great place because it's, they have a lot of the same staff, and that to me is a really big sign of a good business because they don't have hardly any turnover in that restaurant business. That's the name of the game, practically. Mm-hmm. Plus the fact that the food is good, really good.
Very good.
And so, yeah.
But now the question is, do you change up your order or do you get the same thing?
Well, for breakfast, I usually get eggs and sausage and hash browns. I'm pretty traditional. And then as far as the lunch, it's hard to get away from the chicken fried steak. It really is good. And so...
I'm obsessed with the coffee mugs.
Yes.
We all like the different color mugs.
Yes. Well, what's interesting about that is people think they're souvenirs, and they are not. So, yeah, so be sure to put them back where you found them. You would be appreciative of that. So thank you, Otto.
Or you might end up on their...
Hey, on their screen,
on
yeah.
their Facebook on blast.
Bring us that coffee mug back. Also, you ladies look like cigar smokers, and not really. But anyway, but Wild Cigar Bar is really a good place to go. For you, your parents, your dad, your brothers, your husband, boyfriend, whatever you got going on, it's a good place to go and have a quiet place for a drink and a smoke, a decent cigar. It's also a good place to do business. I mean, you have a conference room, so you can use that. He's really good about nonprofit support. So Chris is an old student of mine, and he's a good guy. So thank you, Chris, for all you do. It's over at the Standard. Also, Tiffany Nico, Local Life Magazine. We're getting close to the new issue coming out in about 10 days. She is living the life this summer. Every time I pick up her Facebook page posting of her, she's here, she's there. She's everywhere, to paraphrase that Ted Lasso phrase. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Yeah, okay, fine. Anyway, that's fine too. Local
So
life,
not so localized.
no, well, she's in Florida and all I think for a dance competition with her daughter, or she was. Local Life Magazine TX.com has also got a lot going on as well. So check out locallifetx.com and you'll be able to catch up what's going on today. And of course, we all know our friend Gayla from Southern Gym. They're at the bottom floor. You ladies ought to go by there and check the jewelry out. You like jewelry by any chance? Yeah.
Always accessorized.
It always accessorized. Well, they're at the bottom floor of the Windmiller building now, and it's about triple the space, and it's very nice. And I haven't seen it yet, but my wife works here, and she talks about how wonderful it is. And so I'm going to go check it out pretty soon. All right, so Southern Gym, they can take care of your inventory and repairs. Also, another BNI friend of ours, Old Pro Roofing, say it right, Old Pro Roofing with John Williams, 817-734-2756. After our meeting yesterday, I hooked up a time with him. He'll be on next month to talk about roofing issues, and that sounds like, whoa, boy, that sounds like an exciting show. You'd be surprised. A lot of people say, I actually need to know about that. And so those shows where I focus on something like that actually get better than average draws. So that's a pretty good deal. John Williams, 817-734-2756. They're local, they're hometown. They're down in Old Town, so give them a holler. Also, another local hometown, Texas Farm Bureau, Melissa Harmon, 682-804-0534. Get a lot of good comments from guests and people comment on the show about Texas Farm Bureau and how well they treat their customers. And, Melissa will check out your insurance and see if she could save you some money. And so even if you're not unhappy with your insurance company, have her do it because it saved me money. And there you are. And now, of course, it's really good information about what's going on in the insurance field, about which companies are starting to pull out of which states. So that surprises me a little bit. And so there you are. Also, another BNI friend of ours, Lisa Smith, the Stop Restoration, where they get it right.
The first time.
The first time they got us trained. Yeah, but it's always interesting to listen to him talk, or John talk, or Melissa talk, and it's like, I better get home and see if my home is still standing, because people think, well, things are going okay, and then you find out have a water leak somewhere, and it's all this mold damage, and they're mold specialists, and that's something you have to be credentialed to do. You can't just throw it up there and say I am. Also, they'll take care of fire hazards, water hazards, biohazards, all the rest. So they're really good. Any nonprofit stuff? I know Next Step in a week is having their toy drive in July, their Christmas in July, a week from Saturday. And they're going to be on next Tuesday to tell us all about that. So there you go. All right, let's start from the beginning. For those who may not have caught your last show, Erica, what exactly does REACH do?
Well, a summary of that would be just to make a healthy, safe community. But really, we partner with lots of different resources in the community to bring wellness in general, not just prevention or recovery of substances, but in general wellness of the community. Ashley mentioned mental health. That is something that's been fairly new due to our funding. So now we are able to help with mental health, and that isn't just youth; that's other people. She's done some projects with teachers, police officers.
You're talking about as clients, so to speak, or help them address issues with people they deal with.
Really.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Because when I was a school teacher, it wasn't so much that we were trained formally how to deal with students with mental problems and emotional problems, but you pick it up pretty quick. And towards the end of my career, they started focusing more on that on in-service, how to recognize suicidal tendencies and things like that. Is that the kind of thing you do?
Yes, but also I think we try to just reduce stress by conducting certain activities, whether that's like just doing a fun event or a community event, bringing them together, whether that's giving like tangible, practical items that can help cope with stress, or like literally just to help promote fun, which helps our mental health. So we do all sorts of different activities. We bring different resources that we have in all
Presenters.
Yes, presenters. The RISE conference is a big thing that we work on, but yeah, all with the goal of just making the mental health of Johnson County better.
Well, you got a lot to work with here. But the thing about the schools, Gracie, do you work with the school systems as well?
I did. So for the past 2.5 years, I worked in our youth prevention program. And so we go into schools and we teach one of 3 curriculums. So with our younger kids, it's like a community support group. And so each grade will have, 6 to 10 kids that are just kind of struggling, that they need some extra love. And so we teach them about dealing with their emotions, handling anger, how to make good friends and resisting peer pressure, setting goals, all of the important stuff that kind of like really sets the foundation for the rest of their life.
Yeah, that's what my experience was with older students. And by that point, all those issues you would see like 3rd, 4th grade had transferred to usually substance abuse.
And so with our older, we still focus on those foundational pieces because, maybe they didn't get it when they were in elementary. But when they get older, we do start talking about, hey, what happens if you start experimenting with alcohol early? Or what happens when you start using different substances? How can that kind of turn your life around and help you to, not help you to reach your goals and things like that. So all kinds of education. We also do Red Ribbon Week presentations. So we just kind of talk about all kinds of different mental health and resiliency and things like that.
But see, now, Erica, it sounds like at the beginning of this program or this organization, we're dealing with mental health and then moved to substance abuse and addictions, or do I have it backwards?
Backwards.
Backwards. Okay. So the substance addictions and whatnot, where's the primary focus? When did y'all switch to also include mental issues and emotional issues?
I think it was the end of 2020. Was that when Emily was hired? I think it was the end of 2020. It was called our COVID funding. And obviously due to the pandemic, everyone became, which is great. That was like the only good thing I would say that really came out of COVID was people became more vocal about mental health. So we received this funding that would, the mental health funding, but it was because of COVID. And we noticed that, isolation is increasing, loneliness is increasing, depression and anxiety are increasing. So the funding in this position was given because of COVID.
Have you made any kind of connection between the growing use of social media and all these depression activities? It seems like I've been reading a lot about how the schools are now really trying to, get the kids to kind of break away from social media because you're causing, what do they call it, fear of missing out, or they see on there and everybody
Comparison.
Everybody else's life is so great, mine's crap, when basically their life is not good either. They're just putting on some sort of image on Facebook.
No one posts the bad things that are going on.
Yeah, and so I have had concerns about it because I really do think that towards the end of my career, where phones became almost ubiquitous. I mean, it was like a cell phone wasn't quite that common in 2007, but by 2015, everybody had at least one. And I really thought that, there was a connection here between the isolation.
Well, and now you see, I know with like younger family members that I've observed, and adults are guilty of it too, but we spend so much more time on a device than maybe interacting with people in person or going and participating in actual activities because we're just sitting here scrolling on social media, and that has to impact our mental health.
Oh, I could tell you as a teacher, I used to run the student council, and we do student activities like high school dances and post-football game activities. And up until like 2001 or 2, we'd have like a Valentine's dance, and it'd be very well attended. Towards the end of my career there of doing those things, I could have had the Beatles reunited as the dance band, and it wouldn't have gotten 30 kids there. And so, it's like they almost completely left the school as a social activity hub. I mean, and same thing happened in the sports. I mean, the crowds are much smaller. The kids quit coming to the ball games, and I thought, this is nuts, And so I think there's been a real negative impact on the social aspect of these young people's lives because of all Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, you fill in the blanks. Now you're going to have a new outfit, Threads, right? Isn't that what it is? But it's kind of a Twitter.
Yeah, Threads.
Is it like a Twitter competitor?
Well, that's
It's like
too new
a
for
failure is
me.
what it is.
Well, I think it's
Not even heard of it yet.
Nobody can compete with Elon Musk. Let's
Yeah,
be
see, there you go. I forgot. I should tell you that the number one fan of Elon Musk is sitting in that next room. But Twitter has now a competitor from Mark Zuckerberg called Threads, and I'm thinking, oh, great, that's not what we need is more of that.
Well, personally, I feel that people also just use social media as an opportunity to say things they normally wouldn't say. Like
Really,
very
Taylor, we experienced that.
inappropriate things, very unkind things.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, during our elections, it gets kind of rough.
Oh,
and,
gosh.
You know, and that's
Like, I mean, there's certain things that I've seen people saying that, like, I know you wouldn't say that to somebody's face.
no, and get away with it certainly.
Oh, well, that too. Yeah.
But you know, it also the for my generation, I'm much older than all you. Church was another place that a lot of the stuff that y'all provide, the church is provided in a sense, community, a place for be heard, a place to kind of work out these kind of things, either with a professional pastor or with your your colleagues in church. And now, particularly after COVID, church attendance is way off because I can get it online, and I'll watch it later, or whatever else. And so those things that bound the communities together, I think COVID really did a number on them. My teacher friends that are still in the system said the schools have never been the same in terms of attendance, in terms of attention. Student apathy is at an all-time high. I'm reading all sorts of articles. Do y'all deal with that kind of stuff with like student-related academic type issues and apathy and attendance and truancy, or do you just try to deal with them at the root cause of what this is happening?
Yeah, I think more and more is they're starting to see correlations between your mental health and substance misuse. Especially, even the wording has changed for a lot of different things. We try to step away from the word abuse. But mental health, it's so vital. And a lot of people don't even realize that they use those things to self-medicate.
Like alcohol. My
Cigarettes.
my generation, a lot of it's
Tobacco.
alcohol.
Vaping.
Maybe, most people I know don't smoke, but most people I know drink. And so most, fortunately not to excess, but there are examples. And that was my generation's means of coping. And then the younger generations, they started turning to, some of these chemical substances and whatnot. And as a teacher, I saw it. It really is devastating. I don't have to tell y'all that. Y'all see it every day. But as a teacher, I'd see it and go, oh my gosh, I mean, this kid didn't turn around, they're going to end up in the ditch somewhere, dead or in jail.
And we kind of notice that it is a cycle. Like whenever we have asked students, maybe why do you use a vape or marijuana or alcohol? And a lot of times their reason is anxiety or I'm stressed. So it's a full circle. We go from mental health to then let's use the substances, but like science shows that the substances also worsen your mental health. So it's just like an endless cycle. We keep worsening. We are making their mental health worse by misusing the substances. And then because our mental health is worse, it continues to misuse the substances. And it's just a really bad cycle.
Now, Gracie, you just got your degree from UTA in their social work program, which is very well known in this area, this region of the country, in fact. What is your specialty, so to speak?
I did children and families.
Okay. And you know exactly what we're talking about here. And you were interning with them before they picked you up and whatnot. Is it a learned behavior by these kids, you think?
A lot. I wouldn't say a lot. I would say for some, they do see it at home because those are how their parents cope with stress and anxiety and things like that. And so, it could be a learned behavior, repeated behavior, but also, they see a lot of it in school. I asked kids, well, why do y'all think everyone does it? And they're like, oh, well, everyone does. Everyone vapes, everyone smokes, everyone drinks. I'm like, no. So if you look at the statistics as a whole, they don't. But I think going back to social media, it's always in their face. Movies, music, it's always right in front of them. And so to them, it makes it seem like, in their small bubble of a world that everyone really is doing it.
Well, here's something that I've noticed in the state of Oklahoma. They have passed medical marijuana. And the reason it was passed by a vote of the people. And the primary proponents were pushing the idea that it was good for the mental and emotional health of, PTSD veterans and all this. What I'm seeing is a lot more people in y'all's generation look at marijuana in such a casual way that it really isn't seen within anything like my generation had. My generation, only the hippies and the stoners smoked weed. And now it's like this y'all's generation, it's a very commonly accepted practice. Has that been a negative factor or not a factor in how y'all deal with these clients of y'all's?
We definitely focus on, I would say, our top four would be alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, and then fentanyl because of what's going on recently. But, when we talk about THC, the THC now is completely different than the THC that, you might have experienced in your younger. No, not that you did it. That other people in your generation might have experienced. And so it's, 3 and 4 times more potent. And so it has that greater effect on, their memory and their concentration and ability to focus on things. And it's so much stronger. It's also more addictive as well.
It also depends on who you run with. People don't believe me because they said, you lived in the 70s and the 80s. Surely you've smoked weed. I've never smoked in a joint in my life. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't have other vices. But that was not one of them. Drugs was not a vice. And then when I went to Baylor, the vice of choice was beer. So the crowd was with the alcohol abuse maybe, or I wouldn't say even abuse. I'd just say overindulgence on occasion, which is not the same thing as alcoholism. But now I don't. My kids' generation, which is y'all's generation, it's like just commonly accepted in either various forms. And I wondered if this is really a good thing or not, because I'm still stuck in that mindset that marijuana is a gateway drug kind of thing. That's what we were taught. And there you go. But your specialty, Erica, is it in substance abuse and addiction behavior and things of that nature?
Well, we just kind of focus on all of the alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. But I would say the thing that really affects me, something that I wasn't aware of, is the problem with fentanyl.
Right.
And so I feel like that in mental health is where I really have big concerns about not just our youth, but our community in general. Because with the fentanyl, they don't intentionally ingest it. It's not usually a choice that they've made. It's usually something that it happened to be mixed with. And they're having fentanyl poisonings is what they're calling it now.
That, to me, fentanyl is the most frightening development in this whole, and I'm 61 and I remember they go through PCP and crack and all these other drug. Heroin was a big issue in the 80s and where I grew up in Plano. To me, fentanyl is probably the most dangerous and frightening development I've seen in this whole area. Because of what you just described. When people use drugs, they think they know what they're doing. Whereas in fentanyl, they may be thinking, I'm just doing this, but there's fentanyl in it, and they have, and not even know what's happening. They didn't intend for this to happen. But fentanyl is frightening to me. And I don't think our government, state or national, has taken a hold of that problem as seriously as I thought maybe they did with crack back in the 80s and stuff like that. So, I guess that's what you're here for. But relying on nonprofits is it's a burden, isn't it?
It is. And I feel like they don't bring enough awareness. I feel like there's a lot of denial in different communities.
It's like, my kids wouldn't do that.
Right.
You'd like to think so. And we, y'all do the Red Ribbon Week. I remember that very well. We'd had other anti-drug programs. But really the number one determinant whether or not that they're going to be taking these kind of problems is the home life. And there's only so much we could do as teachers about that. Do y'all do outreach to individual families, homes, etc. I mean, I had a barrier I couldn't cross. I couldn't inject myself into a family situation. But do you have those opportunities?
We do in one of our programs, but like you said, we face a lot of barriers with that as well. We do have a recovery program, so it's not treatment, but we work with youth who want to either become sober or just use less and, set goals for themselves to, maybe instead of being high the entire day at school, maybe they can go to school sober and then make their choices after. But we work closely with the parents as well on how to deal with that. Because a lot of times anger if you're scared of your kid and what they're doing, it might come out as anger, which is only going to push that child away further. And so we work with parents on how to talk to them about it and steps that they can take to help make the lifestyle a more safer and better experience for everyone.
No, Ashley, you work with the school programs as well. No, you don't. You're the work with the school programs. I'll get
She
it.
did, yeah.
Okay, you did. But last time Eric and I were here, we talked about local school districts, and y'all's ability to enter those school districts. And you mentioned one that was very helpful to you. I believe it was Joshua, was it not? Or am I thinking of another district?
Yes, Joshua has
We are
our
all
programs.
over Joshua.
Yeah.
They're very accepting of, what we do, very supportive of us. But we've found that it's been harder and harder to get in because, we're taking up class time whenever we come in for our 30-minute session. And so a lot of kids are already behind from those virtual years. And so it's hard on teachers. It's hard on the counselors to find that time and find that space in the building for us to come and do our thing.
Well, about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago now, I had the head of the health services for BISD, a young lady named Courtney Pete, whom I knew as a student as well. And they're moving in that direction more and more in trying to deal with emotional and mental health of the students. But you're right about the time factor. They're as a school teacher, you have all these events going on and all these breaks in the schedule, and then you have to have it done really about a month before school's over to make sure they're prepared for those standardized tests and all this other business. Do y'all have programs maybe before or after school, or do you find those not to be very well attended?
As far as our curriculum-based programs, it is limited to during the school day.
Really? By somebody's statute or just by or policy or what?
I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it's just how we work with the ISDs.
Okay. Well, I know that there are other clubs that work before or after school that may not be directly involved in what y'all do or types, but Bible study groups or support groups of various kinds, but they had to meet before or after school, and they had to have a teacher sponsor it or at least sit in the room, if nothing else. I just wondered if those kind of programs might be available to you.
Well, we are working on bringing the presentations with one of our districts. We won't quite say yet, I guess.
Or not yet, but I know what you're talking about.
Yes, but they have asked us to come and do presentations, and they are going to be presenting after at like a town hall kind of thing.
Really? When was this happening?
And this will be to the parents and students, right?
When is this event happening?
It'll be several events, I believe, spread out over.
Like a series.
Yeah.
Oh, so I had in my mind going to a school board meeting and making a presentation.
No, it'll be like a private. I mean, that way it can be optional. Sometimes we get pushback as far as, I don't want to hear it. Not my kid, not my problem.
I think that's why
But
politically
it's our problem
tough.
as a community.
Oh, absolutely it is. I mean, we're going to be taking care of these kids one way or the other, and we can either get them an education or we could take care of them in jail or the morgue. And that's no joke. I mean, I've been, I see some really bright kids that got derailed from what I thought would be very promising. One of my benefits is I, particularly early in my career, moved up with my kids academically every grade. And I saw kids that I taught in 9th grade totally different when I had them again in 11th grade, and not in a good way.
Right.
Because they had really wandered off the path. And I did see some kids that I thought in 9th grade are going to end up, if this guy didn't straighten up, he's going to end up dead. And by the time I 11th and 12th grader, he had straightened him or herself up a little bit and to enough to be functional. But those were the exceptions, not the rules. And so,
And we're working to get some of those what we call adverse childhood experiences. Those are kind of the traumas that you experience as a kid, whether that be, going through a divorce, like your parents were divorced, that can put a trauma on a child, but also experiencing much more difficult things. And then working on adding positive experiences to that childhood and giving them some of those tools to help combat some of the issues that they might have later on.
Here's an odd question for you. I have known people, and I've had students, they said their parents got divorced, but it was very amicable, they're still friends, whatever. Does that still have psychological or emotional damage, even if it's done in the least damaging way possible?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I
thought
mean,
so
any
too,
change in their routine, their
Even
family
moving
life.
can, and each person experiences those things differently. So you could have two kids that both their parents got divorced and they're both still happy. They've got two happy homes, and maybe it affects one kid a lot more negatively than it does the other. It's all individualized.
I've had that over and over. I bet half my students over the years either lived with a step parent or with a single parent, and not all the divorce stories are horrible and fighting and gunshots or whatever. But I just wondered, even if it was the least, or at least acrimonious. That's the word I want. Least acrimonious possible. Would it still cause some of the issues we're talking about here?
And when I was in school, we studied a lot about the family life and things like that. And I remember this article that kind of just stuck out to me that talked about, two happy homes is better than one home where it's chaos all the time.
I've heard that too, and had many students also would say that when their stepfather treated them better than their original father, and so all this. So it wasn't always a horror story,
Right?
But it still left a scar, I think, and it may have affected their relationships with their future significant others and whatnot. But I was an amateur psychologist at best. I took it for the psychology classes I had to take for college for the degree, and I hated reading psychology books. All those references and footnotes, and all these exceptions to what I just read, except when,
It's like, well, we think this, but actually, again, it's all individualized and it depends on the kid. And
and just this and this happens unless there's an R in the month. Like, is this on the test? So what exactly do you do? You told us at the beginning, but I want to get back to that.
Yes, so I'm our mental health project coordinator.
So what does that mean?
Kind of what I had mentioned earlier, we work within the community creating kind of what Erica does, creating different partnerships with teachers, counselors, etc., law enforcement, and we try to do different things to support these groups' mental health.
Well, you mentioned about you not just dealing with like young kids or the clients, but cops probably could use this. Firefighters,
Yes.
I know teachers could. In fact, here's a little inside scoop, I guess. I know that in the last school board election, one of the two or three biggest candidates, which were placed for, and all three of them were endorsing increased mental health for teachers. And the eventual winner, Dallas Owen, that was one of the things she ran on. And also Shandy, who I supported, but Dallas is a very good representative for the community. That may be somebody you can talk to. Dallas is a long time. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, she attended our last coalition
There
meeting.
you go.
Yes.
And that's what I figured. They've been here forever as a member of Pathways and whatnot. She'd be a good person probably to maybe get your introduction into BISD.
And we are looking at helping teachers more because we're seeing the burnout that they're having, the compassionate fatigue of caring for somebody until you don't have anything left to give to yourself.
Well, I've talked to the schools some, and I had a monthly show, and I'll resume it when school starts again in September. One of the things I always talk to the school board candidates, Dallas, Shandy, Caleb Mitchell, Ryan Richardson, Rob Duke, those are the five that were running, and all were good candidates, was class size. And that, even if you have 30 pretty well-adjusted kids, they're still kids, and they're going to do things to drive you nuts. And the stress level of having large classes, and I tell you what used to I used to joke about, but maybe it's not such a joke. But when I went to happy hour teachers, those people could drink. I mean, because they were trying to self-medicate.
Exactly.
And so that surprised me when I was younger. Like, wow, I always thought my teachers would go home and prepare lessons and do homework and,
Right.
and that kind of stuff. When you're a little kid and you see a teacher of yours in the grocery store, it's like, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be at school right now. But I want to kind of switch gears. We're talking about addictions. We're talking about substance related, alcohol related, et cetera. But addictions can come in other forms like OCD or other types of mental issues. Do y'all deal with those things as well?
Really, we kind of do. It's not just depression and anxiety and stress. One of the presentations that we did at the school were presenting on things like ODD, ADD. I can't remember all the things.
All the acronyms.
All the letters that the presenter covered. But I think they're seeing a little bit of everything. And as far as the teachers themselves, because of the compassion fatigue and burnout, they're experiencing such a high turnover rate, which then in turn affects the kids because they don't have the stability of the school, which they used to have. And for some of them, that may be the only form of stability that they have because they may not have that at home. But, then they're having a different teacher and having to form a new relationship with that teacher.
I see you're having your own method right now with stress relief with that little toy of yours. Is that what it's for?
Yes, it is actually a squishy, and I got it as a gift for my birthday from Reach.
Yeah, so you basically...
That's part of my gift, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of helps, manipulate that little squishy toy, kind of helps you get through it, huh? Well, it beats yelling and hollering, but
way to advertise a healthy coping mechanism.
I guess that's true. When I first started teaching, the stability of the school was, for me, I thought was normal, but we didn't have very much turnover at all. Very veteran staff, very much clued into the community. Many of them were Burleson residents for years and all that. The last few years, the turnover was like significant to the point where, here we have in-service and they're introducing all these new teachers, and before you even get to know their names, they're gone. And I just figured that has to be a negative impact on schools because you get a staff of 150 total, and you've got like 45 to 50 new teachers. That's not going to help. So
right, and we're really, really hoping that we can reach as many community members as possible with our mental health conference. Again, that's October 13th and 14th, but we are hoping to be able to offer that in the community in subsequent years as well.
Let's talk about that. Taylor, do you have the logo up front that he sent you?
Or save the date.
Or save the date or whatnot. You'll get onto it. He has it.
But we would love
Nice.
for teachers to come out, first responders.
Even students.
Yes, it is open to 12 and up. And free childcare provided.
That's
Thank you
interesting.
to Pathway.
Yeah, that's typical Pathway. That's what I'm saying. That's what they're known for. And so, Rise 2023, October 13th and 14th, and I guess it's a Friday and Saturday.
We're very excited about this year's event. We're doing it in a two-part. The 13th, not to give too much away, but it'll be more of a fun kind of casual night, kind of introduction.
You're supposed to promote it. Don't give too much away. Give it away.
Well, we are going to be releasing more details as it gets closer to the date, but it'll be more of like a fun social kind of aspect.
And it will be in the Friday evening.
Yes, so it'll be just a few hours in the evening, kind of open it up, something fun.
Did you mention you have a comedian or something coming to this?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, did I give you something away?
No, it's okay.
Okay, I gave something away. All right.
But yes, we will have a speaker, and we will be opening up the comedy show, which is completely exciting to us because we don't want everybody to just come in there real closed off. We want everybody to feel warm and welcome and have a little fun because it doesn't have to all be all stressful and intense, and we're not going to shrink everybody's heads.
Right, and certainly you're not going to say, well, the reason why you have problems is because there's something wrong with you or something.
Right. This is all about wellness and finding your strength. And because we all face difficulties in our life, whether that be a death of a loved one or just a hardship, divorce, job change. I mean, there's a lot of things that affect us negatively as adults that we don't really deal with or minimize. Right. I've been really bad about that myself. Like, oh, well, this problem isn't as big because I know a lot of people that are going through a lot more. Right.
That's see, in my generation, having a mental illness was a stigma. It was embarrassing. We're not going to admit that we're being depressed. We're not going to take medication for it. We're not going to get therapy because if you go to an analyst, you must be crazy or something like that. And I resisted a lot of those things for a long time. And finally, I asked my doctor, who said, you might want to consider, these kind of methods here to try to help you with this anxiety and depression issues. And go, really? What did they do back in my dad's day? And they said, well, they got drunk and beat the hell out of the kids. And that,
sadly, that's true.
And so that's how they dealt with it. And so I thought, I don't want this to happen to my children. And so I opened my mind a little bit, let's say, about counseling, about medications, whatnot. And has it helped? For me, it wasn't like the next day. It's all. Oh, now I understand everything. It's all it took. But gradually, I look back to where I was maybe 6 months earlier, or 10 months earlier. Said, I really have made some progress in terms of handling stressful situations and not bringing work home in a sense and that kind of thing. So that my generation, we're a pretty hard audience. And so how do y'all market to somebody like myself?
Oh,
yeah,
it's hard.
Yes, it is.
I think just by talking about it more, and I do feel like the older generations have, like, more people have opened their mind to it just because more people are talking about it. Whereas in your generation, I think maybe it was there is such a stigma is because everyone was silent about it. Like, and so if there was something mentally that you were struggling with, there's something wrong with you because no one else has that problem. Whereas now we are hearing constantly, I'm struggling too. I go to counseling. It's just making it more common, which I think makes it more acceptable. I think the fact that suicide rates have increased so much shows that this is real, like this is a real problem. But that was like a big goal of our conference last year, was decreasing that stigma. That was our huge goal. Like, let's raise awareness. People struggle with their mental health and we're not talking about it enough. So that was our goal with last year's. And we kind of went about that by bringing community members in. We had some professional speakers as well, but we brought some community members in who shared their personal testimonies with mental health. And the idea behind that was, like, it's okay to not be okay. I'm not okay too. But this is how I worked through it. Like, they were positive success stories, but just to show people that they're not alone in their mental health battles. And
here's the thing about the mental health definition, if you will, or description, is I was in a situation where I saw myself as an obvious need.
Right.
And I wasn't, and I really would, we've all known much more severe cases than I was experiencing, but the people around me said, you're not coping with these things well enough. You're not handling this stresses of life in an appropriate way. And that was the signal that they gave me that I needed to work on it. It wasn't like I needed hospitalization or, some more severe psychotropic drugs or whatever else. It was like a small thing. I think that's where a lot of people, they say to themselves, "Oh, it's not that big a deal," Everybody. And then you mentioned, well, somebody else got it a lot worse than me. I shouldn't be complaining. Just because somebody else has it worse doesn't mean you have it good. It still may be tough. Somebody may be tougher, but
right, like someone's max isn't equivalent to someone else's. How much one can handle isn't the same.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I think that's wonderful that someone was willing to step up and say, hey, I see you struggling, and this, it's okay to reach out and get help.
It was a couple of teacher friends of mine that it's almost like they admitted that they were under some sort of mild medication. And, and they were my generation. They weren't young people. And so I think that helped. And my wife had been asking me for more than a couple of days anyway, go to counseling of some sort. And I went to Promises. And that did help. But it's just, it was the fact that a couple of people opened up to me and said, hey, I take, I don't even know what the drug was. It was, Zoloft or something like that. There's various brands now.
Paxil, Effexor, Lexapro.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of SSRIs
I forget the exact one they were taking. And I thought, this person looks like to me, they got it going on.
Yeah.
They got it together. And they're telling me, no, they're hard days. And this is how I get through the hard days. And I thought, and also you got, for my generation as well, drugs have a different connotation, LSD and, all the stuff from the 60s and 70s. So you have to kind of work around that and say, no, these are beneficial.
I think that not for everyone, but for some people, just like someone with diabetes, we treat the insulin, or we treat that.
I have that too.
We treat that with insulin. There can be an actual chemical imbalance with someone's brain. Their brain is sick, just like someone's heart might be sick. And that's where medication can come into play. I really want to be careful about that because I'm not saying everyone needs medication.
Right.
But some people truly do. And then regarding counseling, I think counseling can be helpful for everyone, whether you are struggling or not.
agree.
It's just such a preventative measure. You're talking to a professional who has studied this for many years, and they're unbiased. Literally, their goal is just to help you get better in life. And they can teach you positive coping mechanisms. They help you recognize the negative ones. They can help you think clearer if maybe you're catastrophizing something. But yeah, even if you're not struggling, they're just such a great resource. But yeah.
Well,
And I agree wholeheartedly
Yeah.
with what she's saying. But also, I've told other people, I'm just like, it's not just for when you're having, a hard time. I said, get in there, form a relationship with a counselor. And then when you do have a hard time, you already have a relationship built with somebody that you can trust. And, one counselor may not work. I've been to several different counselors before I found one that I really like. And when I get off my call with her, I do virtual, and I'm like, I can
is
just
so much
breathe.
better, yeah.
I can just, I feel a load off.
Well, see, and that's, we got back to what I talked about earlier, social media and COVID and all this other stuff. Those, sitting around the table having a drink or whatever, or a hot dog with a friend and unloading a bit is a lot less common than it used to be, And then our lives are so, scattered here, and everybody moves and goes here and there, and it's tough. I think it's tougher now to establish those kind of relationships than it was, and so having a professional counselor, like you say, even if you don't feel like you need it, I didn't feel like I needed it until people around me said you need it, and and I'm glad that Pathways and my church, First Baptist as well, that has the Promises, has embraced the idea that there are differences between spiritual problems and psychological problems. Back in my day, you felt bad because there was some spiritual aspect to it, which may or may not be true. It may be true, but it didn't have to be true.
Yeah, we all need more Jesus, but at some point, it's okay to have other help.
Well, yeah, it's like it's the same thing as saying, well, if you prayed hard enough, you wouldn't be sick. Well, no, that's not how it rolls. I could pray as hard as I want, but I'm still going to be diabetic tomorrow, and I'll be taking my insulin tomorrow. And this is kind of the same thing. People in my generation again would look at going to counseling or taking some sort of drug as a admission of lack of faith, or tantamount to saying that God isn't sufficient or whatever else. And I'm like, now my attitude is these things are provided to us primarily through the gifts that God has given people to develop, and so therefore they should be used. And even if you're not looking for like spiritual counseling, I think the fact that people go to counseling more is because people now understand that faith and depression aren't mutually incompatible, that people of strong faith could be very depressed. And that's all there is to it. I was reading that. Michael Warren, you know what I'm talking about? He's a pastor in California, a very big church, whatnot. And he wrote a book about depression because he had a son that committed suicide. And you think this guy's, probably talks to God personally on the phone and that kind of thing. But he was talking about his mental, emotional struggles. So I'm just glad that my generation has come to accept that admitting you need help is not anything like admitting that you have lost your faith or don't have confidence in God. They're compatible, not at odds. So
Right.
That's just me preaching for y'all today. but so back to we're going close on time. So let's talk about this event. What time does it start on Friday the 13th?
On Friday, registration will begin at 5:30, and like we had said, the comedian will arrive at 6:30. It'll be from 5:30 to approximately 8 on Friday. Saturday registration will begin at 8 a.m. and we will kick the conference off at 9 a.m. And it'll get out at 4 p.m. There will be like an hour and a half break for lunch with food trucks. We do recommend people get there around 8, even though it doesn't start until 9. Last year, a lot of people did show up at 8, and that was when they had time to go visit all of our awesome vendors and resources, go to our toolkit table and fill their bags up with lots of good mental health stuff. So yeah, that's the time. Regarding our theme, we did set a theme this year. That's something we did not do last year. We called it Finding Your Strength, or sometimes we say Finding Your Strength to Rise, and tying in the name of the conference. And it's just with the idea of mental resiliency. And like Erica had said earlier, whether we all throughout the span of our lives have different storms and trials, loss, grief. We want to talk about how can I not get stuck in that? How can I still get up, keep going, and maybe even thrive? We want to talk about that, and that's what the theme is. But even if you are someone that has an actual mental health diagnosis, like we talked about earlier, this is still for you there. We want to teach coping mechanisms and again, just how to still thrive in life. We do not have to stay stuck. So that's the idea behind this year's event.
Then I see a QR code. So people go on your page, but they hit the QR code and that gives them all the information they need, I assume.
This QR code or the Google form link, they are basically like a pre-registration. You're just signing up for us to email you when registration goes live, which we plan on being August 1st. So we're very excited. It's very soon. We have started providing more information on our Facebook. We have created a Facebook event, and then also on our website, which isn't on there, but it's just www.reachjoco.com. We have more information on there as well.
And is there any kind of fee or expense to the attendees?
Right. That's huge. It's completely free.
Yeah, that's
I'd
right.
also like to
Free.
throw out that for teachers or other licensed professionals, we are offering CEs this year.
Yes.
And so those are free
Continuing
education
Right,
hours.
right.
Completely free childcare.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we're giving free tools out as well.
so people,
There's no excuse not to come.
Literally.
as far as the vendors, are these are they related to what y'all do?
Yes.
Okay. So it isn't like,
Yes,
just
we are
some
trying to
odd
keep
business.
it limited to things that will help mental stress,
I see.
wellness,
Like
health.
clinics and providers and
Yes, but I mean, it could be things
little-
like aromatherapy,
little toys like that.
anything to help calm and de-stress.
I have one of those. It's a bear, which people who know me would find that to be appropriate. It's a little squishy bear. And so the sponsors, you need sponsors though still, right?
Of course, we always need sponsors. Luckily, we have had some means to be able to book some of these amazing speakers, and I don't really have a lot of information on the speakers.
Well, that's
actually,
for next time.
But we want to not only be able to provide this to the community for now, but we are already talking about doing one next year as well. And so we are definitely going to need help to pull this off, because as this grows and as the interest in the community grows, we want to be able to grow with it.
And it will grow. I'm confident of it because there is a need. There is an audience for it out there, and I just think 5 years from now it'll be just something that people put down on the calendar. You know?
I think so many of us have talked about this in the office, but we really feel God's presence in planning this, because so many things have just come together to work perfectly and to provide this for the community. And it's just so much beyond our job. This is on our hearts.
Well,
That was nice.
well, that's a good way of putting it. And almost all of your nonprofit peers have the same kind of drive, same kind of impulse. They feel like this is what God would have them do with their lives, and so I'm really looking forward to September 21st. That's also my wife's birthday, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah, good birthday present. I could use that.
It's my sister-in-law's birthday.
Is that right? Okay. Is this your?
well, it's a good day.
Is your husband's sister or your brother's?
Yes, my
Okay.
husband's sister.
Okay. Well, anyway, my wife's gonna be out of town that week, so I'm gonna, have a big, event maybe around that to help promote nonprofits and all this other stuff. But I'd like to have her on the show, but she said absolutely not. Well, we're about out of time, so y'all fill in everything that we need to know before we sign off. Just kind of like a summary of things, because some people catch a show towards the end and whatnot, and they can just summarize their
just
things.
please feel free to come join us. Check out our mental health conference, October 13th and 14th. We're starting pre-registration right now. There's really not a good reason to not come. We would love to have you come, and we plan on having something for everybody, young, whatever generation. We're there to break generational curses and to just really outreach and help the community just be healthier, feel better.
I hope my generation responds the way it should. Like I said, there is a barrier to have to break down, but there you go.
We did have people show up last year around your age.
Oh, when you say around
And
your
even
age.
older than your age.
Like 65
No,
plus
right?
we had.
No,
So-
it's fine. I've had people say, I guess say, how old do you think I am? 70. Oh no, thank you. No, 61. That's all right. But no, my generation. I graduated high school in 1980. I don't even think your parents probably even knew each other in 1980. They may not have been around in 1980. Who
Mine
knows?
did,
Okay.
but my parents are older, so
Yeah. Okay. No, but my older generation needs to get on board with this, and there's no question about it.
And
Yeah.
definitely, I would love to see just a large variety
Yeah.
of people coming. Everybody's welcome.
Well, I really enjoyed this. It was great. It's like a little private therapy session for myself, talking to y'all. So it's great, and we'll be on, I'm sure, again. So y'all, friends out there listening, or we hear it later on YouTube or the Spotify and Apple Podcast, send this episode to people you think could use this event. All right, I'm not just trying to grind up the numbers. I want you to send it to people that you think and you care about and you're concerned about. Send it to them and have them become aware of this opportunity for them. And I'll see y'all next week. I have Next Step Women's Center and Crazy 8 on next week, so that'll be a lot of fun as well. So I'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Mm.